We are live. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Welcome to a live edition of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. We're doing our predictions for NXT TakeOver Vengeance Day. I got to admit, Ralph, while it is an NXT TakeOver, it should be a good show. The card itself, don't feel like there's a lot of build to it. And some people, I think, might feel like the buzz for this show isn't as good as it should be.
Yeah, especially considering this is a takeover. You got to think that this card is a little underwhelming. Now, the card itself in ring, I'm more than certain all matches are probably going to deliver. The main event, I'm certainly excited for that. But no, I definitely agree. I mean, I think the build to these matches has been a little spotty, or a little lackluster. And, it just doesn't have that NXT TakeOver feel to it, aside from the main event. But, what else are we going to watch, I guess? There's no football.
There's no football.
UFC on.
Nope. Impact had their pay-per-view yesterday, and I know some people are talking about it. I heard Juice Robinson and Finley are coming to Impact Wrestling. I know Tommy Dreamer didn't win the title, although a lot of people would have loved for it to happen. He's never won a world title, has he, Tom Dreamer?
I think he won the ECW championship once, and he was really against it, and it took him years to win it. But
yeah,
I think that's probably the only, if you want to consider that major title. And I'm talking real ECW, not WWE repackaged, rebranded ECW version.
Right. So, also today is a big anniversary. Today is the anniversary of the Big Show's debut in WWE at St. Valentine's Day Massacre, Ralph.
Yeah, that's about as exciting as the wart on my foot from jogging. Great. I'll be sure to go watch that. But no, in all honesty, when that happened, that was a very big deal, but they just didn't really do anything with him. And it's not so much maybe that they didn't do anything with him. I think it was kind of a two-way road. I've been listening a lot of Conrad and Eric Bischoff, and he talks a lot about the Big Show, and even Jim Ross and Conrad were talking about just the Big Show and, certain points in his career where he was out of shape. I think timing had a lot to do with it. But I mean, when this happened, I remember Michael Cole's voice just crackled. That was Paul White.
That's Paul White.
Oh my God. That's like the one thing I take away from this. And then obviously Austin going through the cage, but an interesting choice for the name of the takeover tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think they missed the ball with this. I mean, Vengeance Day is a really cool one, and it goes back to an old pay-per-view that WWE used to play. But on Valentine's Day, how do you not go with St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Especially when it's the Big Show's debut. It's Austin versus McMahon in the steel cage. Would have been a good way to pay homage to it. Could have had a steel cage match tonight. It's not PG enough, maybe. I guess, but who knows? But I think the show is going to be good regardless. I think we have 5 matches here that are going to be very, very good. And those that are going to watch on the WWE Network understand that this is the last takeover before they move to Peacock. So they better
be interesting.
Yep. Save the best for last. But before we get to the predictions, folks, I do want to remind everybody, if you don't see it on the screen, we will do Q&As throughout the episode and also at the end of our predictions. You could put hashtag question next to your question in the live chat. It helps me see where the questions are. We go in the order that they come in on the live chat. And then if you want to cut the line, you donate to the super chat party, any dollar amount. I know it's Valentine's Day. You got to pay for the roses. You got to pay for the chocolates. You got to pay for the promises you don't intend to keep. So that, whatever you can to help support this channel, we greatly appreciate. Your question will be answered as soon as we see it in the live super chat. So
are you cooking tonight, or are you venturing out into the restaurants?
I will be cooking. I'll be cooking some chicken parm for the missus. That's her favorite dish. So we'll be doing that. And a nice quiet night. I don't know. Watching some NXT TakeOver. She'll be watching some stuff on YouTube. And that's how the night will be. What about you, Ralph?
I'm making seafood fra diavolo.
Oh, geez. Pulling in the big
Lobster,
bucks.
scallops.
You must have got some super chat check that I was unaware of to afford something like that.
No, I'm doing some side hustles with some other podcasters, maybe.
Well, if you decide to let me in on it, we could plug it together. So are you going to be doing your Instagram thing like you did with the Royal Rumble?
Depends how much I eat. I don't know. If people want me to, I will certainly do that. People can talk amongst the chat there and let us know if they enjoyed it.
Yeah.
We did get a substantial amount of people start following us on Instagram that day, but
hey, that's how it works. If you keep doing it, we'll grow there just like we grow here on YouTube. So, Ralph, someone asked, where's the cat?
He was just perched behind me. He will slowly invade. I'm sure he will interrupt at some point throughout the day.
All right. So, guys, like I said, question in the live chat next to your question, and then in the order they come up. So let's start with the predictions. We start with the Women's Dusty Road Classic Final. Raquel Gonzalez, Dakota Kai going up against Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. I think this one, I don't know if it's going to open the night, but I think this is probably going to be the quiet one. And when you worry about the one that steals the show, it's always the one that gets the least build. This one, I think, is going to be a very good match. It could steal the show tonight.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that what we can probably... Yeah, I think that there's a good chance this one opens the show. I think that they will get a substantial amount of time. Again, this is kind of one of those matches where it kind of seems like it was thrown together. But that has a lot to do with the fact that, for NXT, for whatever reason, it seems like once they get on track with a storyline, they pump the brakes. Like somebody will be on one week and then they're off the next week and then they're back after a couple of weeks. And, it's kind of all over the place. But you know what? If the point of this is just for people to go out there and have a good match, I have no doubt this will deliver.
Yes. And don't forget, the winner of this gets a title shot for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship, currently held by Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. Do you think this match will be held on an episode of NXT? Could it be WrestleMania, or do we see the winner get promoted to the main roster for this tag title match?
Oof. I don't see this taking place on WrestleMania. I would venture to guess that. I mean, that's true. That's true. I don't know. I don't think that there's enough hype around the tag titles, the women's tag titles. I mean, I know right now they're kind of it seems like they're doing a little more with Nia and Shayna. So, I mean, I guess it's possible, but I see this more as a match that would likely happen on like Raw or SmackDown, probably Raw.
Yeah. Well, I mean, seeing that Nia and Shayna are bound on Raw, like they're actual Raw roster members, but with the titles, they could go to any brand. But I think this could end up at Mania, just to help fill out those two nights and really give NXT some exposure. I don't know if they're like, we get this back and forth now. Are they a developmental brand? Are they a third brand? What exactly is NXT? And if they want to establish as a third brand, they have to put some NXT talent at Mania. And what better way to do this than to have the women tag team championship match at Mania, where the Dusty Road Classic champions are there. And I think these four women right here can make the easy transition to the main roster. I mean, Ember's already been there. Shotzi has a great character. Raquel could be, the Diesel in the women's division. And Dakota Kai has had her moments in the Royal Rumbles. So obviously there's some promise there. Just a matter of when a matter of when it's going to happen. So I'm excited to see this match, honestly.
Yeah. And since you kind of brought this up, the way I see this match unfolding, I think just based on what's gone on recently, where Raquel Gonzalez is currently in NXT, kind of in a development, I still think she has a little ways to go before she's going to be highlighted on the main roster or called up. Dakota Kai has been great as a heel. But I think just in terms of what WWE looks for in terms of their main roster performers or wrestlers, whatever you call them, I think Shotzi Blackheart and of course Ember Moon, who's already been up there, like you pointed out, that they seem to be more of what you'd see on a week-to-week basis on Raw or SmackDown.
Right.
So I think that they're going to win this match. I think that Raquel Gonzalez, while she's going to be very good and they've done some stuff with her, I still think it's a little premature to see her go up to the main roster unless they do want to test her, like put her in a match in a high-profile spot. Granted, there won't be as many fans at WrestleMania, and it's still a big spot if they decide to have it there. So I think Shotzi and Ember Moon are going to take this one.
I think they will, and I think there's more storytelling to it than people don't realize. And I'll ask you this, Ralph. So we all watched the Royal Rumble, and obviously you had the impression that there wasn't really much in the women's match. It was like no one really stuck out and nothing really stood out to you in that match, even though Bianca Belair did win, Rhea Ripley was second, and they really showcased some people. But I want to ask you this. Mm-hmm. Do you remember who eliminated Shotzi Blackheart in the Royal Rumble?
No, I don't know off the top of my head.
It was Shayna Baszler. And it's not the first time Shayna Baszler has eliminated Shotzi Blackheart in a Battle Royal match. Yep. She's done it before. Now, who eliminated Ember Moon?
Are you going to say Nia Jax?
Nia Jax eliminated Ember Moon. See, folks, WWE does do some long-term storytelling, even when you don't realize it. And that's why I think Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon are going to win and somehow tie this all together, because believe it or not, the Royal Rumble plants seeds for future storylines, even when you don't see them coming. So while Raquel is going to be forced to be reckoned with and show a good showing in this match, Dakota Kai takes the pin, and we see Ember and Shotzi get the tag team title match. So, all right, let's head to
on that one.
Yep. All right, the next Dusty Road Classic final. It is the debuting, well, not really debuting, but just getting to the scene, MSK versus the Grizzled Young Veterans. Both guys have looked good. Both tag teams have looked good in this Dusty Rhodes Classic. Both of them in the semifinals had really good matches this past Wednesday on NXT. Does MSK finish what they started as their debut starting here in the Dusty Road Classic, or do we soon recognize the Grizzled Young Veterans as NXT's number one?
I'm going with the Grizzled Young Veterans in this match. I think that they're a really good heel tag team. I think that they're both very confident. They're obviously the much larger, more physical team, and I think that's going to make for a really good dynamic in this match. I think MSK has been really good since they've debuted, but I think that just in terms of, storyline progression and having a team be the chaser to those to that title, the Dusty Rhodes, Dusty Cup, whatever they call it nowadays, the champion of the tournament. Right. I think that the Grizzled Young Veterans are going to win this, and I think eventually MSK will get that win back, but I don't think that's going to happen tonight.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, this is one of those cases where you can have MSK lose, but have a good effort and show, right. You could still put them over in a losing effort. And while I know some wrestling fans of the internet wrestling community love to say, oh, one loss, they're buried. But MSK, I think they can take a loss here to the Grizzled Young Veterans. And Zach Gibson, I really love how he comes out every week and just yells out and brags about how great the Grizzled Young Veterans are. This is a tag team that WWE needs in whatever brand they're on, because while we have great tag teams, how many of them can actually stroke an emotion out of the crowd? Like, exactly. Just the fact that you have Zach Gibson yelling this whole soon to be recognized. Like, imagine when fans come back, if he keeps doing it, fans are going to click onto that and they're just going to sing along with him to do that whole soon to be recognized. And that's a money tag team right there. If you could just get them to do something like that. It's like, what a rush from the Road Warriors and Legion of Doom. Like, that's what they need in the tag team division.
So no love for Enzo and Big Cass.
Well, that too. I mean, how you doing? And realest guy in the room, but I mean, at this
no,
point,
I get exactly what you're saying. I mean, yeah, I think that in terms of just, MSK is very good in the ring, and dare I say that, based on what the internet wrestling community probably would prefer in terms of in-ring abilities, they'd probably side more with MSK, and they'd probably want to see MSK win here.
Mhm.
But I think just in terms of longevity and being able to carry that division and being able to, be that boisterous, loud tag team that everybody wants to see get pinned by, somebody, I think that the Grizzled Young Veteran have a much higher ceiling than MSK, at least for right now.
Yep.
And eventually, as MSK gets a little more accustomed to being on the roster and, developing their thing, whatever that thing is, when they're out there on the mic, I think that they'll start to get more opportunities. I just don't see them at that point yet. That point yet. So I think Grizzled Young Veterans is a team that's going to come out on top.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only way that MSK wins this is if they feel a WWE or, Vince McMahon sees something out of the Grizzled Young Vets and wants to call them up right after tonight and put them on Raw or SmackDown to help build the tag team division. But I don't have much promise in that. But with that said, I'll go with the Grizzled Young Veterans to take the win here.
Yeah.
All right. So let's take a couple questions here, Ralph. I saw a couple come in. So again, if you want to ask a question, use the hashtag question before your question in the live chat. We're going in the order that they were put into the live chat. If you want to cut the line, donate to the Super Chat Party. Any dollar amount would be a nice Valentine for us here on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. We'll start with Christian Joseph. His question is, do you think Rhea gets called up before Mania?
Yeah, I'm surprised she's not already there.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably waiting to see where Charlotte and Lacey end up. I think what's going to happen is Lacey wins against Asuka next week at the Chamber. Then they have a women's title match at Fastlane to get the title on Charlotte to set up the Mania match between Rhea and Charlotte. That's where I think that goes. Dan Goose, his question is, what are your guys' thoughts on the WWE no longer giving any raises and pay for any of the WWE staff and superstars? So yes, I work in the business of television. The company I work for deals with the WWE network. And it was not a fun day hearing the news about the whole pay raise and lack thereof and whatnot. And with any company, this is not just a WWE thing. Like, companies do this all the time, and it's, not fun. And, I'm sure there's going to be employees out there that are going to be seeking other opportunities. So with that said, it sucks. Hopefully, those that are affected can find, something at the other side of this. But, this is WWE's not the first to do something where they have a big year and not pay it back to their employees, although they should, given the circumstances.
Yeah, and one of the things I was going to say was, is this actually true? But you're pretty much saying you at least know a few people within the industry. So this did happen.
Yes, it did happen.
All right. So if I'm an employee, of course I'm upset. I don't know the motivations and the reasons behind why WWE decided to do this. And I don't know if we're ever going to actually get the true story. Because, ultimately right now, everything is kind of secondhand from employees and, however else you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, I know that the Q4 numbers came out and they certainly weren't good. And I mean, they were still profitable. Record revenue, but profitability was way down. So why is the profitability down? Like what caused that? So if the revenue was good,
Thunderdome.
Yeah. So your costs are high. You're paying more to make the money. But the only thing I could think of is this. Sometimes in a company, you can say, okay, revenue can be a little tricky because you can say, all right, if you can theoretically say we made $100 million, but in reality, you only made $50 million because that other 50 is projected revenue.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody there to say that you can't claim, like, let's say, for example, right now, the Saudi Arabia money for their deal is on pause.
Right.
That money's not actually coming into the company, but they can report it as coming in, so they could make their numbers look better than they actually are. And I'm not saying they're doing that. I'm just saying that, look, if there's a reason they're not giving out the bonuses and the raises, there's got to be something that we're not seeing in those numbers, especially considering, I mean, I get it. Profitability was down like, I think it was like 30 something percent, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite that much. I don't know off the top of my head. I know it was down though.
Right.
And revenue was up. So if revenue was up, but profitability was down, you're paying more for your costs. So is there something in that revenue that isn't, I don't know, legitimate's not necessarily the right word, but misleading maybe.
Right.
And only those in WWE are going to know that unless they openly share that with their employees. And I don't think that's going to happen.
Well,
and most companies don't.
To my understanding was at this past financial call, they actually invited employees to the call, which is something they usually don't do unless they have investment in the company. Like if they're an actual investor. So if they're having them be on the call, that we're them bragging about all these great financial things, and then they hear this, that's like thanks for all the help, F you kind of thing. I mean, it to me, if I was working for WWE, I would not be a happy employee. And from the people that I have talked to, they're not, but at the same time, they're going to seek other options. And in Stanford, there are a lot of options in television. So it's not like, and these guys, you're working in WWE. That's a great name to work for on the resume. So I'm sure if Friday wasn't a good day, they'll find something later on. So, all right. We did get a $5 donation to the Super Chat Party. Thank you very much, Mario Morales, big supporter of the channel. He says, what can NXT do to get back to the level they used to 1 or 2 years ago? It's tough because I think part of it is just the sheer fact that they went on the USA Network, so they're treated like a third brand instead of a developmental brand. And I think that's hindered the show itself.
Yeah, in my opinion, and I've said this before, there's really a couple of different things. One, I think that NXT, more than just about any show, they missed their live crowd. They used to have fans that were really bought into the storylines. They used to have a crowd that would go nuts for, it just made for a better atmosphere, and it made it feel more important, especially if you were watching on TV. Now, if you go back to that timeline 1 or 2 years ago, like you're talking about, you had much better, well, I wouldn't say better storylines, but storylines that you could get invested in. Ciampa, Gargano, you had guys that were brought into NXT, like Ricochet, Matt Riddle, some of the bigger names from the independent scene. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you're seeing that nearly as much because, we're unfortunately in this pandemic era. So, and I guess just because people are always comparing NXT and AEW has those established guys where right now, whoever was essentially one of those established guys in NXT was kind of hot shotted to the main roster, and some of them for really no reason. Your Ricochets, your Andrades,
Aleister Black,
War Raiders, Aleister Black. I mean, Street Profits, all those guys got brought up very quickly. And that didn't do any favors for NXT, especially when you're trying to recreate buzz and you're trying to get attention and you're trying to build new stars, because as we've seen, it's very difficult to build new stars. So they're kind of in the weird transitional period. You got guys like Gargano, who now has his little group, and Ciampa, who's not necessarily in the title picture. I think they can get there. They need a crowd back, and they just need to establish some more guys, I think, which isn't easy.
A lot of the guys that are on that main event level in NXT are guys that have, let's be honest, have stayed their course. They've had their time in NXT. There's not much much left they could do. They could use a change of scenery, but I think whether it's Vince saying no, Triple H holding them back, or the wrestlers themselves saying, I'm afraid how I'll get booked on the main roster, they're not going up. The Tommaso Ciampas, the Undisputed Era, the Johnny Garganos. Like, there's not much for them left to do. and they're taking spots away because, it's supposed to be a time for guys to develop, getting TV ready. But we have these guys kind of being the leader of the brand, and they don't have anything for them. And they're just kind of forcing them on with these things that just aren't clicking. And I think that's part of the reason why they are where they are right now.
Just a forewarning, the cat has now entered the room.
Yes. So
and he is eyeing the computer, and he is eyeing the couch in back of me. So he can make an appearance at any point.
Yeah. So for those that are looking for the cat, he will be here momentarily for a guest appearance on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Thank you, Mario, for your question and your $5 donation to the Super Chat Party. Let's head to the next match here, Ralph. It is the Women's Championship match, triple threat match. Io Shirai versus Toni Storm versus Mercedes Martinez. I think this is going to be the match of the night. We already know Toni Storm and Io Shirai can have a good match. We saw them in the finals at Evolution of the Mae Young Classic a few years back. Mercedes Martinez has been, someone that was well used in the Mae Young Classic. This is really her first chance to shine in NXT in a big spot here. I think they're going to give it all they got. We've seen Io in triple threat matches before. One of the matches of the year last year with her, Rhea, and Charlotte for NXT. So I think this one's definitely going to be one of, if not the match of the night.
Mercedes Martinez, now she was the one that had the good cage match against Rhea Ripley, right? Before Rhea went up to the main roster. So
yes,
that was probably the match I think that she's best known for. Then she did that weird thing, I think, with Retribution for a couple of weeks.
She was in Retribution. Then she told Vince, "This is stupid. I'm out." And then they brought her back to NXT.
Good. Yeah. Well, she made a smart decision. But in any event, I am certainly excited for this match. Toni Storm is very good. Mercedes Martinez, we've seen that she can certainly deliver on a big stage, like I just said, with Rhea Ripley. Io Shirai, to me, is one of the best women's wrestlers in the world. I feel like if she was given the opportunity to go out there and do her thing week in and week out, she would definitely be considered as one of the top women by most people, if she isn't already, and I'm sure she is. But she's very good. And I'm excited for this match, mostly because I think that, again, the dynamic with somebody who is like the powerhouse with Martinez in the match, I think Io Shirai, who's much smaller than her, can take some really good bumps. I think this is going to be very good. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah. And I know we got a little bit of it a couple weeks ago on NXT with a little bit of a scuffle there. Nothing on NXT this past Wednesday, except for a couple video packages, which were good. I'll say that they're good. I'm sure they'll be put on NXT tonight before the match even starts. But I don't know who's going to win. Like, I don't think it's a clear-cut Io retention here just because it's a triple threat. But at the same time, who do you give it to if it's not a retention? Do you give it to Toni or do you give it to Mercedes?
If anybody's going to take the title off of her, I'd imagine it would be Toni Storm. Just because, I don't know, it seems like they can do more with her, and they have done more with her. She's a little more established than Mercedes. Well, but it kind of all depends. Like, what direction do they want to go with NXT? Like, what are their ambitions for the main roster? Are they going to call anybody up right before WrestleMania? If they were going to call anybody up, I don't think it'd be Io Shirai. I think that it would more likely be Toni Storm or even Mercedes Martinez. But I'm not quite sure. I'm on the opposite side of you. I think Io Shirai is going to win this hands down.
I mean, we're talking about Io Shirai. A lot of people consider her one of, if not the best women's wrestler WWE has signed on any of the three brands. Toni Storm, just getting there back, because of COVID. She wasn't really part of either NXT or NXT UK, but we know what she could do. Also, Mercedes Martinez. This is someone that's been in wrestling around the independent scenes for 20 years. Her trainer is Jason Knight from ECW. And she's worked a lot of the independent scene. She worked a 75-minute match with Tessa Blanchard a couple years ago. In the Mae Young Classic, she had a great match against Miko Satomura. So she definitely has the credits if you do the research. Credentials. If I were to pick somebody, if I'm going with a title change tonight, I'm putting my money on Mercedes Martinez, and I'm going to put a little extra money on her just because she is a fellow Connecticut resident, just like you and me, Ralph, born and raised in Waterbury, Connecticut. So I'm going with Mercedes Martinez, what I'm calling her the Brass City Brawler.
Okay, interesting. I wonder if you should copyright that name now that you said it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. It's possible. I'm not going to say that it's outside the realm of possibility because, you know, I guess when you think about it, you want to believe that anybody in the match is capable of winning. I just don't know. I don't feel like they've really built anybody up to feel like a threat to Io Shirai right now. So that's why I see her winning, but
all right.
I guess that's why we're watching to see what happens.
All right. Well, we do know that Io or Mercedes and Toni have had their back and forth, and the story's kind of been planted there. So if they drop it, they can extend the story with Toni and Mercedes while Io maybe goes to the main roster. So, but before we head to the next match, though, we did get a couple super chats, so I do want to get those up there. So thank you first to Eric Aida. I think I pronounced that right. I apologize if I didn't. His question is, after a $5 donation to the Super Chat Party, if and when the WWE pulls the cord on NXT on Wednesday night, how big of a ratings boost does AEW get? Okay, first off, WWE does not pull the cord on NXT on Wednesday. USA Network does. NBC Universal does. WWE has no say in whether or not NXT stays on Wednesdays. I know a lot of people think Vince McMahon has this almighty power to just force a show on a certain day. But this is a deal where the network buys the rights of the show to air whenever they want it to air. Now, they can agree, I want it, you know, Vince can say, I want it on Wednesdays. NBC could say, okay, we've been in business together 30 years. You seem to know what you're doing, so we'll keep it on Wednesdays. But this Peacock thing, where this starts on March 18th, you know, 6 months, 9 months down the line here, come 2022, NXT could still be on Wednesdays on Peacock. Now, as far as ratings, does this make a big boost for AEW? Honestly, no, because if anything, it might make like a 2 to 5% increase in the 18 to 49 demographic, and more specifically, the male 18 to 49 demographic, because though, if you just look at the actual like sub demographics of ratings, you'll see most people watching Wednesday night are men 18 to 49. It's not like if like Raw was on Wednesday and then they moved it out of Wednesday and then moved, like they got that viewership. I think it's really not as big as people want to make it out to be. Could they get them to a million viewers? Depending on the week, maybe, but we've seen that there's a stagnation of viewership, 800, you know, between 700 and 800,000 for AEW and 500 to 650 for NXT.
Yeah, and I guess even if you want to take it one step further, I mean, this is just an assumption, but I would imagine to guess that most people that are interested in the AEW product, well, AEW is definitely trying to cater to a younger fan.
Right.
And NXT is a show that does really well with the older demographic. That 50 plus, that's usually their strong suit, correct?
Correct.
And
well, compared to AEW, I mean, they both suck in the 50 plus, but NXT usually beats AEW in the 50 plus.
So assuming there's no threat to AEW, AEW Dynamite is on by itself on a Wednesday night. I mean, I don't know if that's just enough for the older fan to tune in just because they want to watch pro wrestling.
Right.
Or if they're going to say, this isn't for me. And, you know, just based on the style comparatively between the two, I mean, NXT is a different product than AEW, so it doesn't automatically mean that those fans are going to tune in to AEW just to watch pro wrestling.
True.
They may. I mean, we've seen the swing from time to time when they're not on competing against each other, but the numbers, you know, it's not like a drastic increase.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right. All right. We got 2 super chat donations. Thank you, Trey Long, for 2 separate $2 donations here. The first one was just passing it out. Thank you very much for
thank you
for that. But also he added another $2 and he said that AEW needs writers. I'm surprised someone actually points this out, because this is one of the criticisms WWE gets all the time is they have these writers, right, in these promos. They shouldn't have writers. They should just let them do their own thing. But we see someone obviously seeing the opposite side of the coin, where it's like, you know, AEW could probably use some writers to actually straighten some of these storylines out.
Yeah, I think that it would certainly benefit from having somebody who can say, and I don't know the backstage structure. I don't know how much input Jim Ross has. I don't know how much control the talent has over what they're allowed to do and say.
Right.
But, you know, the one thing I would say is this: I think they could benefit from having certain people backstage to help with certain talent, especially the big guys. I feel like the big guys really need somebody back there to say, look, you should do this because it makes a little more sense. It will make you look better. Luchasaurus, just as an example, like going out there and doing flips every single time he has a match. Now, and I'm not against him doing the flip spot or anything like that, but when it's happening week after week after week, or at least as many times as he's wrestling, because he's not on TV weekly anymore, I think it hurts him, because it's like people just get used to it. The fans get used to it. It's like, we've seen that before. If he was to use it in a big spot in a big match, okay, that makes it more impactful. That makes it more meaningful. Storyline wise, I think that they could certainly benefit from having some people back there to tell them, no, don't do this. This isn't a good idea. You shouldn't say that. You shouldn't do this. And I don't know, that might be going on, but sometimes it seems like the talent is allowed to go out there and do and say whatever they want. And, you know, sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. And right. If Tony Khan is where the buck stops, I mean, I don't know. But realistically, he's only been in the business since the inception of AEW.
Correct.
It's not like he has all of these years of knowledge. Yeah, he's a smart guy. He's always been a fan, and I'm not trying to knock him, but booking wise and running a wrestling company, he's still very new, and you don't learn that stuff overnight.
Exactly. So, you know, and it could probably benefit if they had some Hollywood writers. I know some people don't want to really say that, but just to help with the actual storytelling of the show. Because as much as we don't want it, they do need they do need some structure in their storytelling. And don't get me wrong, like AEW does for their first and second year has a very good job of their storytelling. But there's some things that they could do a little bit better than. And maybe some writers that work in television and write for television might be able to help them out in. But let's head back to NXT TakeOver here. And the North American Championship, Johnny Gargano against Kushida. Do you think, obviously I think the Way is going to get involved somehow, but do you think Kushida can evade the Way and become the new North American champion?
I do. I don't think they're going to have all these championship matches where no title changes hands. And I think the two that we've talked about to this point, I've said no. Look, Johnny Gargano is essentially now playing the role of like a chicken shit heel. And he's doing okay at it. Last week was a step in the right direction. I can't say I am thrilled with the Way. I don't really like the faction itself, but at the same time, I think that putting the title on Kushida doesn't necessarily hurt anything. I know that this title has been kind of passed back and forth between, you know, Johnny Gargano and Ruff, and kind of gone back and forth from that point. But if there's a title that's going to change hands tonight, I think it's this one. So I'll go with Kushida.
Yeah, I think, you know, while the Way can play a factor into this with Austin Theory, Candice, and Indy, let's not forget, part of the storyline now is the menacing Dexter Lumis. So does this affect how the match happens, where maybe Dexter Lumis equalizes what happens with the Way? Gargano still manages to win, but then the next part of the storyline is Dexter Lumis becomes the number one contender for the North American Championship, and then he beats Gargano for the title. Or they end up doing a triple threat match or a fatal four-way with Austin Theory involved. Yeah. I could see a lot of things going with this. I'm with you. I am not a fan of the Way Johnny Gargano, and I think this actually has hindered his development in NXT than it has helped him. But this past Wednesday was a step in the right direction. With that said, I think it might be time to change the title. And
yeah,
I'm going with you. And maybe it's just because one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future, and Kushida's character revolves around that movie, and I want him to win, and I think he's a great wrestler, and I just am rooting for him. But I'm going with Kushida. I'm with you on this. Kushida gets the win.
Yeah, and actually, as we're kind of talking through this now, we just had an episode where he talked about NXT and development and how some people are critical of Triple H for not creating that next star from the NXT brand. And it's kind of like if you want people to make these mistakes or you want guys to try things that are new. I mean, look, somebody brought this up already. When NXT was at its peak, Johnny Gargano, Adam Cole, Tommaso Ciampa, those were their top guys. Johnny Gargano played the babyface role, the underdog role, amazing.
He did.
Maybe nobody did it better.
Mm-hmm.
So this is certainly something that, and by better, I mean, obviously within NXT to this point, not just across the board. So maybe this is the way that, no pun intended there, this is the way that Triple H wants to let these guys go out there and experiment and try things so they know, okay, well, now when I get to the main roster, I can look back on this experience and say, well, this worked, this didn't work. Maybe I should have done it this way. And maybe by letting them go out there and make these mistakes, maybe that is the way that he's trying to get them prepared, because maybe Johnny Gargano just isn't meant to be like a stable leader. Like Daniel Bryan, when he turned heel, everybody was kind of against that. I was one of those people, and he knocked it out of the park.
He did.
Maybe when Johnny Gargano goes to the main roster, he needs to play that babyface role, and maybe he's just not cut out to be a heel or the leader of a faction or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out tonight. I think that Austin Theory is a guy that can certainly be one of the top guys on the NXT brand. So eventually you got to think that they're going to transition into that, I would think.
You would think, but I think the problem with Gargano at this point is he plays such a good babyface role, but can Gargano go to the main roster and a bigger, more diverse audience get invested in him? And that's the big question. It worked in NXT when it was a little concentrated demographic and audience, but when you go to the main roster, we're talking, different genders, different races, different countries, different languages. Can he make that same connection that he did with the NXT universe? If it's that same storyline with him and Ciampa, it can, but maybe it just doesn't work on the main roster. But all right, so we're going to do some more questions here before we head to the main event. Couple questions here. First off, do you think the WWE should consider putting the women's tag titles on NXT, since it's a lot of women tag teams on NXT?
I think it would certainly be interesting for them to compete on NXT. I don't think it'd be a bad move. I think that I just wish they would do more with the titles. They haven't really done much of anything with them since they created them. So, I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, I think they definitely need the NXT women's champions to just go on different brands. Not just, they've been focused on Raw for a very long time. We saw them on SmackDown this past Friday, but I think they need to be more of a traveling champion, especially because they're in the same building. They're in the same state. It's not like they have to fly from California for Raw, then go to Orlando for NXT, and then like Boston for SmackDown or whatever. They're in the same state. What is it? 2 hours from Tampa to Orlando? Not even, maybe? So I would like to see them more, and especially because the women in NXT is probably the deepest division out of any of the brands. So it'd be nice to, build up that tag team division in NXT and use the tag team championships over there. So next question. And again, if you guys have a question, use the hashtag question in the live chat. We're going in the order that they came in. Also, if you want to donate to the Super Chat Party, any dollar amount. I see Trey Long is still donating $1 at a time. Thank you very much, Trey Long, for your support there. But any dollar amount, and you have a question, we'll answer it in the as soon as it comes up here. So next question is, when I hear some of the old NXT alumni, they cite Dusty Rhodes as their mentor. Do you think his absence has had effect on the current NXT guys working on the main roster? I don't know if this person watched our video back on Tuesday, but didn't I say that?
You may have. I don't know. So you're saying what? That because Dusty is no longer there, that it's obviously having an effect on the way that they're developing.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like the main event picture on Raw and SmackDown, when you really think about it, the only ones that really went through NXT are Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who both, I believe, were there when Dusty was alive still. And after that, like, this is where Vince can't book these guys well. They can't, they're not doing it right. And I mean, Dusty and Dr. Tom Pritchard are no longer part of NXT. So I think this is probably part of the reason why that transition is harder from the NXT to the main roster, because NXT has now become like the pinnacle of independent wrestling, whereas WWE, we know, is not independent wrestling.
You really want to ruffle some feathers? Remember, we had this conversation about OVW.
Yeah,
being developmental for the main roster. I wonder if people actually go back and look at it and realize how many, I guess you would even consider some of them, a handful of them, top stars, went through OVW and trained with the likes of Jim Cornette. And I bet you a lot of people don't even realize that. So losing somebody who's been in the industry, whether it's somebody working with Jim Cornette or whether it's somebody working with Dusty Rhodes, which Dusty Rhodes is, one of the best characters of all time in pro wrestling, just being able to gather as much information from him, learning as much as you possibly can. And it's not bad to learn from the likes of Triple H or Shawn Michaels, but it's probably two different philosophies in the way that you're going to approach things, so like I said, NXT is in a period of transition right now.
Yep.
Both with the stars, with the way that people are being taught, all of that type of stuff. This is all new. So, I mean, I certainly don't think it helps not having Dusty there by any means.
No, it doesn't. And I don't know if they have a promo guy there that's training them in promos. But they definitely need, if it's not, if there is one, maybe they need to think about bringing in somebody else to work on promos and characters and stuff like that. I know they have guests, people come in. I know the Undertaker stopped there for a little bit, but maybe the Undertaker has to go there and not necessarily tell them to stop playing video games, but bring the psychology back into, NXT. And when they bring the storytelling into their matches, like we're talking all-time classics, like Ciampa and Gargano, that street fight in Chicago, like storytelling 101. And like, while the matches are still good, I don't know if we're seeing those level of matches anymore in NXT.
I mean, the last really good, you certainly see good matches. I mean, Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor was great. I think that the big thing that hurts it is the fact that there's just not fans there. That certainly does them no favors. It doesn't help, but I mean, just in terms of delivering NXT TakeOver caliber shows every time they go out there,
right?
That was a really, really special time where they had a lot of talent and just not just talent that can go out there and wrestle. Because tonight, like I said, it's going to be a good show, but we're talking about established guys, established people who fans want to see. I don't know if they still have that right now. I think they're still kind of in that period of transition.
Yeah. Well, maybe tonight will be the start of a turning point as we start to get more and more fans involved. And I know the Capital Wrestling Center has had fans, but, like you said, the fans, I think NXT has missed them the most. But let's go to the main event. Finn Balor versus Pete Dunne for the NXT Championship. I think this will be a good match. But the question is it too obvious that Finn Balor retains here?
I don't think Pete Dunne's winning. I don't take him as a serious threat to the title reign of Finn Balor. I think that it's going to be a really good match. But look, Edge went to NXT for a reason. I don't think Edge is going to challenge for that title, but in terms of it being realistic and progressing that storyline or keeping it intact, I think either Finn Balor has to be the champion or Karrion Kross has to be the champion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Edge is going to go and choose anybody from NXT if it's Pete Dunne that is holding the championship. Pete Dunne's great. He's very good in the ring, and it will be a great match, but I don't see him winning. I just don't think they're going to do that. Unless Finn Balor is going to go up to the main roster, but he's not going to go be in the title picture right now. What would be the point?
Right.
I think Karrion Kross and Finn Balor is a match that they want to make, they will make. So, yeah, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, because you could go two ways about this. Obviously, Balor and Kross is one road, but the other road is, do you continue the Undisputed Era storyline, which, when was the last time Undisputed Era were even on NXT? Has it been like 3 weeks?
I think so.
Because
they closed the show with Balor and
they
Cole
lost,
and everybody in the ring.
They lost to Ciampa and Thatcher.
That's right. Yep.
So that was like, but there was no involvement with Dunn, Lorcan, and Birch. That was just a straight match. There was no interference. Yep. So either they drop that storyline or they're going to continue it somehow tonight with Undisputed Era. I don't know. But do they put the belt on Pete Dunne and then maybe either Kyle O'Reilly or Adam Cole or even Roderick Strong beats Pete Dunne for the NXT championship? I don't know. But I think if Edge does somehow challenge for the NXT championship, which I'm with you, I don't think it does, you got to get that belt on Karrion Kross.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're in agreement here that Finn Balor is going to retain?
Yes, I think Finn Balor is definitely going to win this match.
All right. So those are our predictions. We're going to stay for at least another 8 minutes to the top of the hour, answer some more questions here. Use the hashtag question in the live chat. We'll go in the order that they came in on the live chat. If you want to cut the line, donate to the super chat party. Any dollar amount with a question, we'll answer it as soon as we see it in there. Also, you see behind me some t-shirts, a sweatshirt. We do have merchandise. Link in the description. You get 10% off on the promo code SCPB10. We got the logo of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. We have ratings 1849. We also have Watch Wrestling Every Day for any type of wrestling fan. So maybe a good Valentine's Day present for your wrestling fan significant other. We won't get it today, obviously, but you can show them, look, I bought you a Squared Circle Psychobabble shirt, and your wife, your husband, your kids will tell you you're the greatest significant other, parent, Valentine ever by buying that Squared Circle Psychobabble merch. Anyway, another $1 donation to Trey from Trey Long. Thank you very much, Trey, for your continued support here on this live chat. But let's get some more questions in here. Let's see. This is actually for next week, but here's the question. For Elimination Chamber, do you see Lashley retaining and Brock comes out to challenge him, or the unexpected Keith Lee heel turn to join the Hurt Business? And which do you think happens of those two?
I don't know if Brock's going to be at WrestleMania this year. I don't. Is Brock Lesnar even? We don't even know if he's under contract to WWE right now, because last we heard he was not. I
don't think so. And if he is signed, if he gets signed to, WWE and he's there for WrestleMania, as much as a lot of people want to see him face Lashley, that's not a marquee match, I don't think. Like, he's going to go either fight Drew, or if Edge challenges Drew McIntyre, you're going to get Brock and Roman again. I don't think Lashley and Brock Lesnar would be the match that he comes back to WWE for.
They'd have to build Lashley up a little more, and they've been doing that the past couple of weeks. But
right,
like to your point, if Brock's coming back to wrestle at WrestleMania, it's not going to be against Lashley. If it's not for a title, it's going to be against some bigger name. Like, he comes back for big marquee matches, like names like The Undertaker. If he's going to wrestle Triple H, like, that's the type of match you're going to get. Or he's going to wrestle for the title. He's not going to come back and just wrestle Lashley because it's, some people view that as like a dream match because they're both big guys that, fought in MMA. I don't see that happening.
Exactly. So, all right, next question here. Let's see. Next question is what direction do you see Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era going?
I don't know.
I don't know, because the thing with the Undisputed Era is, at least in my perception, is these are guys that a lot of people think could be main eventers in WWE. And honestly, I don't see it. I don't see, like, Adam Cole could have some great matches. Kyle O'Reilly could have some great matches. Fish and Strong are great wrestlers. And as a faction, they've done really great stuff. But again, making that transition from the NXT audience to the WWE audience is a complete transition. It's like going from college to the NFL. And some guys just don't make that transition. As soon as Adam Cole is not put into the main event picture within like 3 months, people are going to call out that he's not being used right, and his momentum is going to stop, and people are going to be like, oh, Vince can't, build NXT guys, whatever the case may be. I don't see it with Adam Cole. Like, he's got the Adam Cole baby thing. He could connect to a crowd, but he's not a main eventer in my eyes.
Somebody just commented on this in the comments section. I agree. I mean, Adam Cole, he's great in the ring. I agree with everything you're saying. I think he certainly has it factor. And I'm not even a guy that comes on here all the time and says, look, based on a guy's size, but he is small in comparison to a lot of guys on the main roster. And it just won't be believable.
Mm-hmm.
And that turns some fans off. They just may say, I'm not going to watch it. Honestly, one of the guys that I think can go to the main roster right now and transition, at least find a spot and be able to do something, doesn't even have to be in ring, is Cameron Grimes. And I think that just because he has the ability to go out there and talk and be this over-the-top personality where it's like when he talks, you stop and look and pay attention. And not everybody has that.
Yeah, I agree. And even if a guy has a character and is put on TV a lot, but not in the main event, doesn't mean they're buried. So we got to stop this whole notion that, like Keith Lee, for example. A lot of people are saying Keith Lee is misused or buried because of the way he's been booked since he's gone up to the main roster. But when you think about it, his booking has actually been pretty decent. I mean, I think he would have been one where he would have had a good showing in the Royal Rumble if he was not exposed to COVID. And obviously he's getting a United States Championship match after not being in the Royal Rumble. So there's obviously something there. They had him win a 5-minute match against Randy Orton. That's saying something. They have something. They want to see something in him. But then you get this report that, they're sending him back to the Performance Center, yada, yada, yada. When all it was like, all these guys just practice in between because there's no house shows. Like, this is the stuff we got to stop doing. And if a guy's not a main event guy, it doesn't mean they're buried. They're just not main event guys. Plain and simple. But
yeah, and I mean, if you look at Keith Lee as an example, it just would it do more for him to go up to have gone through what he's gone through to this point, win an IC championship, carry that title, and kind of figure out what's going to work for him in the main roster, or put him right in the main event picture, give him the title, and then he just doesn't get over, or he doesn't connect with the fans, and now he legitimately gets buried because he loses his confidence and things like that. So I'm not for rushing people right to the main event picture just because they had some success at the NXT level. I think Keith Lee is certainly going to get there, and I don't have a problem with having him go and work at the developmental center to ensure that he gets to that point. I think people just, unfortunately right now, it's really trendy to hate on a lot of the things that WWE does, and sometimes rightfully so, but I think too many times we overreact to a lot of things.
I agree. Absolutely. 100% agree. All right. The next question is, if Jim Cornette stopped being a jackass, do you think he can actually help AEW?
Okay.
A lot of people call you Cornette Jr., Ralph, so I'll let you answer this first.
I feel that Jim Cornette criticizes AEW, sometimes rightfully so, but I also feel like, and this is just based on listening to his podcast, he certainly has a good mind for the business, and he should, because he's been working in it his entire life. And he points things out that, fans would never even think of. So if you listen to him, yeah, there's a lot of wisdom there. Of course, there's a lot of language and a lot of things that he says and the way he delivers things where people won't listen to him. But I think that in terms of where the industry needs to go to get to the next level, I don't think he's the right guy for that. But in terms of storytelling, he can certainly help them. But he almost needs like a yin to the yang. And so who's that guy that's going to say, okay, from a wrestling perspective, Jim, that makes a lot of sense. But let's look at it from like a business perspective, because like something like with Shaq, like he's not going to support something like that, but that still might end up being good for AEW overall because it's more eyes on the product, and he wouldn't be open for something like that based on what. And again, that's just based on listening to his podcast. So
right, I agree. Like he could be a wealth of information and could really help some of these guys out. I think his approach is obviously a little too harsh for some of these wrestlers to, they might get offended with how he approaches them. And I also think he might be a little too stubborn. For example, like the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. Yes, the Kenny Omega has done some really weird things in Japan in DDT, and I've seen like all these clips that keep coming up. But in Japan, like that stuff is entertaining to them for that weird, like for us, it's weird and doesn't click, but in Japan, it might be a completely different audience. And like, I'm pretty sure almost every big name wrestler has had a match with that doll. So you can't really like fault him for doing it. He's not doing it here in America. So, and it was young in his career. So like stuff like that, I think because he did that, it's like Omega can't have a good match. But yet Omega has had many, many good matches, even in AEW. But yet he'll like find the smallest thing and make it like the biggest problem in his matches. That's where I think Cornette could stop being a jackass, as the question asked. But next question. Give us your dream AEW New Japan match. This question popped up to my mind after Meltzer's report on Okada. Now, first off, let me just iterate here. The Meltzer comment, it was a comment, not a report. So
it's an assumption.
It's an assumption that Okada is coming. It wasn't an actual report. So we're not even 100% sure that it's happening, but we did a whole episode on dream matches with AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling. So if you didn't see that episode, I'll put a link in the comments or in the description on the replay here, so you could check that out. So one that comes to mind, if you're not watching New Japan Pro Wrestling and want to see New Japan come here, obviously would be Kenny and Okada or Kenny and Ibushi.
Yeah, Kenny and Ibushi and Kenny and Okada would be the two off the top of my head. Those, yeah. I mean,
unless you do like
all types of possibilities.
If you follow through with the Bullet Club storyline and bring in Tama Tonga and Tangaloa and Jay White, do like New Japan Bullet Club versus the Elite Bullet Club. And I know some people say that could be the new Blood and Guts match. Do something with that. But I mean, the whole Okada thing was a little blown out of proportion as people wanted to just create clickbait. Like Meltzer said it's happening. No, he's speculating it's happening. Next question here. Do you think that if Edge beats Roman Reigns, do you think that he should bring back the World Heavyweight Championship?
What, like the winged angel? The eagle?
Not the winged eagle, the big gold. The one that Triple H got. That was the old WCW Heavyweight Championship.
Yep. Sure, why not?
The problem is WWE is a brand, and that you can't see the logo on that belt. So it won't happen. Maybe they should, but they won't. They won't. Let's see. Do you think that Kenny Omega is being a good champion? Do you see Cody ever challenging for the AEW championship? Eventually, Cody's going to have a title shot. They just have to find a way to get it around that stipulation. Kenny as a champion right now, it's too early to tell, but this whole thing with him going to Impact and stuff like that, it worked in the beginning, but right now I think it's kind of getting a little stale because I don't think anybody's benefiting from it right now.
I think Kenny as a champion, quite honestly, I mean, look, so we've had Jericho and we've had Moxley, and I think Kenny is, to me, the least interesting of the three so far. I think that he's done the least with the title, and that's sad to say considering he's been the focal point of this whole back and forth, him going to whether it's AAA or whether he's going to Impact or New Japan, whatever he ends up doing. I mean, I think he's doing, his matches have been good, but I still think that he was much better in Japan, more charismatic in Japan, had better matches in Japan.
Right.
And, just in comparison to what I know he's capable of or what he's done in the past, I would say that it's been an okay title run to this point. Nothing. I don't think it's been great, but I don't think it's been bad. I do think Cody will challenge for the title at some point.
Yeah,
yes,
it's too early to tell whether or not the reign has been good. I mean, he only had what? Has he had? He's had what, one, maybe two title defenses so far. So you can't even like critique it so far. I think you have to wait for the whole reign to finish before you can really say if he's a good champion or not. But next question, is it time for Vince McMahon to lend over the keys to Triple H? Until Vince McMahon dies, it's never happening. So I don't even think we need to answer that question. But, I mean, has Triple H really proven anything yet to really say that Vince needs to hand over the keys? I don't think so.
I think that it's never going to happen, but I think that it is probably time to start. And I think Triple H actually kind of started doing a little more. I read a report that he actually ran the Rumble because Vince was not there, and I thought the Rumble was actually pretty good. So
he wasn't there because his brother passed away.
Right.
So that's why. It wasn't like, oh, Vince is just taking the day off. Like that, it's a completely different thing. But
Triple H still had to do it and run it and manage it, and
people still
I
crapped on it because Edge won.
Oh. You can't please everybody. It is what it is.
All right, couple more questions here. Do you think Cesaro needs to go back down to NXT and become a star? I think that Keith Lee is joining the Hurt Business and become WWE champion. Now, first, the Keith Lee thing. Future WWE champion, maybe not now. Maybe it helps that he goes to the Hurt Business to help with his character. Cesaro going to NXT, especially right now, would be the dumbest thing because now they're finally pushing him the way people want him to be pushed. Especially if you saw Talking Smack this weekend. He finally cut a damn promo.
I was not impressed with that promo. I don't know why. No. That promo was good by the standards that he's delivered in the past, but that was a whole lot of, first of all, I don't even know where I want to start with this. Was it better than what he's done? Yes, that was probably his best promo, at least that I could think of off the top of my head. I follow a lot of MMA. I watch a lot of UFC. That reminded me of, if anybody watches UFC, there was a press conference between Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping, and Rockhold was talking about how he accomplishes all his goals and he sees things and he believes in himself, and Bisping literally told him, like, conceive, believe, achieve, like, shut the F up. Like, nobody cares. And that, I mean, I'm glad that he had some emotion in it, but I was just like, I felt like I was watching like an infomercial for an inspirational talker and not, I mean, I don't know. I thought it was okay, but I didn't think he seemed confident. I didn't think it was a great promo. I didn't think it was a strong promo. I think he ended the promo with love will overcome. And it's like, okay, that's kind of cringy, but I don't know. I was not as impressed, and especially considering I saw so many people talking about it on social media.
I think that the difference there was it felt, I mean, was it like the greatest promo ever? No, but I feel like he was finally letting something out, and he did things, small things that a viewer could connect to, staring at the camera and keeping eye contact with the lens, and, the whole motivational speaker talk stuff. Like, maybe it was a little cringy to some people, but some people can actually connect with something like that. And understanding where he's gone through and just understanding like his passion and love for the business and never getting that opportunity, I think a lot of people resonated with it. And that's why some people are saying it was a really good promo. So I feel like if he could do more of that, that's going to get him the push that a lot of people have been waiting for since 2013, 2014, when the Cesaro section was like really big. So, and I think next week at the Chamber, Bryan and Cesaro are going to be the last two in that match.
And that would be great. And look, I like Cesaro, and my main thing is this, like, I think that if you gave that emotion and you gave that content to somebody else who is more confident in the way they can deliver a promo, they would have done better with it. And, Cesaro, it was fine for what it was, but at the same time, for somebody who's been in the industry and especially at the main roster level for so long, should it really be where we're questioning, okay, well, was it a decent promo? Was it a good promo? Was it just good for him? I mean, how much? I don't know. Again, we talk about the it factor all the time. I thought it was a decent promo, but I feel like had you given that content to somebody else who's just better at promos overall, it would have been more impactful.
Right. All right. So last question here, and then we'll head on out. If Seth Rollins, who was a champion in both Ring of Honor and NXT, has been a top champion on Raw and SmackDown, why can't guys like Kevin Owens and Adam Cole be champions on the main roster? Well, first off, Kevin Owens has been in the main event picture. They just haven't. I mean, he's a former Universal Champion, so I don't know why you say he can't be, because he has. And his story with Roman Reigns has been very good, even if they had the same. They've been facing each other for 4 months now. Adam Cole, if you even put Adam Cole in the same ring with Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, he gets dwarfed by them. Like, he looks so much smaller than them, even though they're like the same height, but he just looks so much smaller than them for whatever weird reason it is.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, that's really the only thing that I think people could criticize Adam Cole for. He's good on the mic. He's a great talker. He's a great character. He's great in the ring. But just some people comment on his size. Like Sami Zayn.
Like, I know some people try to make the comparison of him and Shawn Michaels, but even when Shawn Michaels was like the WWE champion, if you took that Shawn Michaels from 95 and Adam Cole today, completely different. Like, well,
I mean, if you put Shawn in the ring with Bret Hart, I mean, it was still there wasn't a noticeable size difference.
Right.
If you put Adam Cole in the ring with even somebody like a Cesaro, like Roman, any of those guys, it's just some fans will look at that and say that they're not going to watch because it's not believable.
Yeah.
That's just how some people think.
Right. And you could have the Adam Cole Bebe thing and whatever, but eventually you're going to get put into a match against bigger, stronger guys. And yes, I know he had a great match with Keith Lee, but the wrestling fans that watch NXT could invest in that. But when you go to the main roster, they might not, because it's a different audience. And as soon as, like, that's the thing I think some people don't realize. It's a much different audience. So, but all right, guys, thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for the donations today. From Trey Long, from Mario Morales, from who was the other one? I'm trying to see here really quick. Trey Long, also Eric Aida. I think I pronounced that right. I apologize if I didn't. But thank you guys for your donations. Thank you guys for your questions. We do this before any other pay-per-view. So next week, Elimination Chamber. So we'll have our prediction show there as well for questions, reviews, all that fun stuff. Don't forget to share us all over social media before the pay-per-view ends. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss an episode. Behind me is the merchandise, 10% off, link in the description. And we'll see you all on the next episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Good night, everybody.